It is almost now part of my yearly program to be here on this day to celebrate and remember, and I use the word celebrate very guardedly, and you'll see why. This occasion, or this tragedy that took place here in Lusignan, and tonight as I make my remarks, I want to specifically address a few things. No amount of explaining, no amount of justification by anyone, no amount of seeking to rewrite history can change the fact that a wrong was done. What happened here in Lusignan was wrong. It will always be wrong, and nobody can change the fact that it was wrong. Even though there are those who would want to now twist it to show that probably there was some justification. It was wrong, and it is wrong, and it will always be wrong. There were those who condemned it as wrong immediately after. But we must be reminded that there were those who sought to justify it, as if these helpless, defenseless, vulnerable, innocent people that lived in this community had done something to deserve this kind of a treatment. People with political agendas should not pounce and seek to send messages by hurting innocent people. It is wrong, and it will always be wrong. I'd also like to remind us that after this massacre, some actions were taken. And one of those actions that were taken was legal action. The police investigated, people were charged and placed before the courts. And to the amazement of all of us, there were those who went to the court and defended those people. It is wrong. And there were those who defended that wrong. And we must not forget that among those who defended, those who were charged and were considered culpable of that crime that took place here, among those are some of the same people who want to come to tell us that they would like to be leaders of Guyana, to take Guyana into the future. Well, they say, I am not sure, but I believe every man should have a conviction that everybody is entitled to a defense. Yes, but I believe when you want to offer yourself to the nation as a national leader, you have to start taking certain positions. I cannot defend the defenseless. I cannot seek to justify that which cannot be justified. I should not use my skill and learning to let people who should be punished go free, while a community and a nation was torn apart, and still come back to say, I would like to be a national leader. It is wrong. Colleagues, we have today in Guyana people who have forgotten the lessons that we would have learned as a nation 7 years ago when this happened. So I need to take time to remind us. One of the first things that happened is that the people of Lusignan and Monrepo and people on the lower East Coast felt that they were forsaken and abandoned, and they were left exposed to the criminal elements. But in the midst of that, we must be reminded that there were those who housed and give succor and support to the wrongdoers in our midst. Thank God. Thank God that era was brought to an end and people can sleep again. And in today's scheme of things, there are people who would like us to forget. But every resident of Lusignan and the people of Guyana must remember the leadership provided by former President Dr. Barra Jagdeo in those days, who gave his word that he will hunt them down to the end and ensure that this never happen again. And the fact that the people of Guyana can sleep and villages could be at rest is because of that relentless pursuit in ensuring that those wrongdoers were brought down. Colleagues, we still have issues of crime and security in our country, but we must never mix and confuse the difference between regular crime, robbery, as against that which took place here in Lusignan. It wasn't robbery that took place here in Lusignan. It wasn't kick down the door bandits that came here in Lusignan. It wasn't people who came here because they wanted your jewels and your money. It was an act of race hate. It was an act of race hate. And we must not forget that. This country is a beautiful country where our people are living together. And I'm grateful that I'm part today of a government and an administration that places premium on ensuring that our people live together, our people work together, and there is freedom for all religions, there's freedom for all people, and that we can promote both social cohesion and social inclusion. We must not forget that this crime was not a robbery, it was a crime based upon hate and vengeance. And that is why I'm particularly disturbed that there were people who were prepared for filthy lucre or for money or for some other motive to defend that wrong and to seek to justify that wrong. But what is the message that we should send here from this place this evening? Firstly, 7 years have come and gone. Guyana did not collapse. We held together. We overcame then, and I've got news for us. no matter how trying and testing the times are in Guyana, once there is mature leadership, once there's a mature response, we will overcome and we will continue to go forward. We will continue to go forward. Lots of us thought that that would have been the beginning of the end of Guyana. But I recall having spent several nights and weeks here in this community with the various families at all of the various homes, at the funerals, in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the hurt. The people of Lusignan, they were asking for national reconciliation. They were asking for healing. They wanted Guyana to move forward, and they were offering forgiveness. Your strength here in Lusignan served to be a strength for all the people of Guyana in those trying days. And you must always be remembered for that. And finally, brothers and sisters, when we think about what the future holds, when we think about what is at stake, when we think about where we are as a people, we all have to start making some choices. Hard choices. We have to choose between those who will applaud either quietly or openly when pain is coming on others, or we have to choose between those who come to the side and aid and support of those who are feeling pain, and to fight off the oppressors. You have to make a choice. Look at what is happening in Guyana today. An act by foreigners, namely the European Union, which could cause pain to all Guyanese by withholding from us monies that are rightly and justly ours, that could bring untold suffering, economic hardships, all of the people. There are those in Guyana who are applauding them and says, bring the pressure on Guyana. They are clapping the European Union for withholding monies that are rightfully ours. Because there are those who feel good when people suffer, because it brings some amount of satisfaction to them. But the time will come when we will have to choose who we will embrace. Those who are applauding actions that bring us pain, or those who are fighting to champion the causes to ensure your personal well-being, your security, and your prosperity. You have to make those choices. We have to choose between those who make empty promises and between those who deliver, yes, even sometimes fall short when they're seeking to deliver. We have to make those choices. So tonight, I want to lend my continual support publicly to all of the families, to the community of Lusignan, and to continue to encourage all Guyanese that with all of our might and with all of our strength, we must reject race hate. We must reject violence. We must reject every attempt to divide our nation. We must reject every attempt to divide our communities. And colleagues, we must put a fence around our communities to ensure that the hate mongers and race baiters don't find any accommodation amongst us. We are coming into a season when they come. We must make sure there is no place for them. Because what the people of Guyana has asked for is unity, togetherness, working together for the good of Guyana. And we will continually promise you, we were there for you 7 years ago, we are here for you tonight, and we will continually be here with you. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
الصلاة والسلام عليك يا خليل الله الصلاة والسلام عليك أيها النبي المدني الصلاة Bishop Wanejil, the grouping of religious leaders who are present and who participated in these proceedings, the relatives and family of those whose deaths we are assembled here to commemorate, brothers and sisters of Lusignan, Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, good evening. I am here to speak in place of His Excellency, the President, who has another engagement and is unable to be here, and who through me sends his deep regrets and apologies. Having regard to what have already been said, about what happened here on January 26, 2008. It is difficult to add to that. But I had the misfortune of arriving here presumably shortly after the horrific tragedy took place and before the bodies were removed from the various abodes. And I had the misfortune of seeing firsthand the bodies of the children, their mothers, their fathers, their brothers, sisters, mutilated by the bullets which penetrated those bodies on that tragic morning. The image is still fixed in my mind, and when the news of that horrific tragedy was disseminated throughout this country, the Caribbean, and indeed universally, the psychological scar, the emotional trauma that it caused cannot be described in language. So much so that entire communities, including of course the community of Lusignan, was so enraged that they took to the streets, they took to the roadways, and out of frustration, out of anger, out of pain, out of anguish, out of a sense of helplessness, they protested, they blocked roads, and they were solidarity with groupings of people who came out throughout the East Coast. Certain persons as far as Bath Settlement, and they were charged by the police, and I had to go all the way to Blairmont to represent them in the courts. That was the level of outrage that this horrific tragedy caused in its immediate aftermath. 7 years after, when one reflects upon what happened here, the wounds, the scars return and are reopened afresh. Many, many lessons are to be learnt from this tragedy. And if we are to properly commemorate, respect, and perpetuate the memories, the legacy and the lives of those who perished on that fateful day, then it is incumbent upon us to ensure that we learn from those tragedies so that those lives would not have been snuffed out in vain. And what are some of the lessons that we must learn from this tragedy? What are some of the lessons? Because history teaches us that if we forget what we have endured as human beings, there is every likelihood that we will live to repeat it. And therefore, we must use this tragedy to derive some learning so that the community of Lusignan, and indeed no other community, will ever suffer the fate of what transpired here in 2008. What happened here demonstrated without a shadow of doubt that crime, when it raises its ugly head amongst us and in our communities, is not necessarily crime driven by a criminal motive. This community here and the people who were slaughtered on 2008 are among the poorest people in our country and in this community. And that is a known fact. So those who disturbed the tranquility which was here that morning with rapid gunfire and the slaughter that ensued were not here for loot. They were not here for wealth. They came here to kill. They came here with an agenda. And they chose this community for defined and definite reasons. These are lessons that we cannot forget. And those who did this atrocity, unfortunately, some of them are still among us enjoying freedom. Some have died, but some are still with us. And most significantly, there is another grouping who encouraged, who aided and abetted, and who has subsequently lent them assistance, who are still around. Yesterday, to my horror, I saw in a newspaper in this country a political advertisement, an advertisement from a political party that used this tragedy where innocent children and their parents were slaughtered while they were asleep and made that the subject of a political advertisement for elections. Can you believe the disrespect? Could you believe the insensitivity of a grouping of people who are aspiring for political office, which I have no doubt is their right, but they want to use the tragedy of the people of Lusignan, wounds that are not yet healed, and make that the subject of a political advertisement, blaming another political party for what happened here? And it is as if they think that the people of Lusignan and the people of Guyana are stupid and are unaware of the role that their leaders played in acquitting those who were charged with this atrocity in the courts of this country. It is as if they think that you are stupid, that you wouldn't understand that the chairman of that party appeared for the man charged with the murder of the Lusignan Massacre. And it was subsequently discovered that he had what I consider to be an improper relationship with the foreman of the jury. And it is the jury who acquitted those people who were charged. So not only are they choosing this tragedy to make it the subject of political football, but they are rubbing salt in the wounds of the relatives and those who are scarred by this event because they played a role in the courts of this country. And then on top of that, before they try to keep that quiet, they put that in an advertisement in the newspaper, obviously with an intention to fool people. But you are a smart people. And that is why I am saying to you that we will never be able to commemorate properly the lives and legacy of those who were massacred here unless we are able to learn the lessons from this tragedy. And we must be able to ensure that we learn that lesson and learn it properly. Because those very people will come in the community of Lusignan in due course in an attempt to embrace you because of a political event that will come in May. And they will try to tell you all sorts of things, as they are trying to do, admittedly in a very foolish and insensitive way in that advertisement. And permit me to speak a little more on that advertisement because they name my name. They put my name in that advertisement that I apparently appeared during the murder trial, at some point in time during that murder trial, for the man who was the foreman of the jury. When the world knows that I was at that time the Attorney General of this country and therefore can't have a client. So in the lies, they are not even careful. I was the Attorney General at the time when the Lusignan Massacre trial was going on. I could not have had a client. But more importantly, assuming that that gentleman, whoever he is, was my client, I did not appear in a murder case where he is the foreman. That is the issue. That is the issue. Is appearing as defense counsel in a case where that gentleman is the foreman of the jury, having appeared for him in a case, in another case. The point I want to make is that as someone used the term silly season, someone who spoke before me, as that, I don't want to say silly season, but as that season approaches, you will find these types of positions being adopted and all type of mechanisms and schemes will be employed. But this is simply not an event to play politics with. Children were killed. Mothers were killed in the presence of their children. Fathers were killed. What is why do you want to make this the subject of political discourse? That is the insensitivity, the callousness of those who conceive that idea to put an advertisement in the newspaper, obviously to coincide with this event to commemorate the death anniversary of those who perished, unfortunately, 7 years ago. So, brothers and sisters, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the relatives and the family of those who died for demonstrating to the country and perhaps the world that they have the strength, they have the physical and psychological and emotional makeup to recover from such horrific tragedy. I want to congratulate the entire community of Lusignan for the solidarity and the familial brotherhood and sisterhood that is obviously existing among the people of Lusignan. And the leaders like Brother Harish, Pandit Harish, and all the other leaders must also be congratulated, because it is in this period that leadership is required and the mettle of the true leader really arises. I want to take this opportunity also to congratulate and to thank the organizers of this event, the IAC and its executive management, for consistently hosting a program of this type where we get an opportunity to reflect upon the horrific tragedy and to ensure that we will continue to remember this event so as to learn from it. And I know that there are other events that are normally organized to celebrate and to commemorate this tragedy. And to those who are organizing those events and who have organized those events, I want to congratulate them and thank them. Brothers and sisters, over the last 30 years, the worst act that have taken place in our country, in my humble and respectful view, occurred here. And our brothers and sisters, 11 of them perished. Let us continue to celebrate their lives. Let us continue to build on their legacy, and let events like these, in their memory, become bigger and stronger. May their soul rest in peace. Thank you very much.